Hello, everyone. We'll give everyone a few minutes to join on to today's session. Monday webinar. We're excited to have Pat here with us today. Friends at Procurement Assistance Canada. So hello and welcome everyone to our Startup Gov webinar entitled How Procurement Assistance Canada Supports Businesses that are Underrepresented in Federal Procurement. I'm Crystal Falea, Managing Director at Startup Canada. I'll start by asking all of you attending today, is your business looking to grow? I think that's a common question. Many entrepreneurs are trying to sort of figure out different avenues to explore. Would you like to expand your network and identify alternate sources of revenue for your business? I think most entrepreneurs would say yes. As the largest buyer in Canada, the federal government may have some contracting opportunities that are right for you, and we're going to dive into some of those opportunities very shortly in today's session. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I am on and which Startup Canada was founded on is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage you today to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are residing on today. We do welcome you to connect with each other in the chat. Make sure you are sending your messages to everyone in the room. Zoom will default messages to only send to the host and the panelists. So just for the sake of everyone, we encourage you to just toggle that little switch and make that change just so you're able to connect with everyone that is joining us today. Today's session is also being recorded and will be added to our YouTube channel afterwards as a living resource. Now, for those of you who are perhaps not overly aware of Startup Canada, we are a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools they need to build a successful business here in Canada. Since launching in 2012, we have grown to support more than 130,000 entrepreneurs annually and an ever-growing community of ecosystem partners from coast to coast to coast. Startup Gov is one of our flagship programs that provides unique opportunities for entrepreneurs and the private and public sectors to come together and co-create solutions and pathways for entrepreneurial success. Through webinars, roundtables, and continued advocacy work, Startup Gov connects the perspectives of entrepreneurs, innovators, industry executive, and government representatives to raise the bar for Canada as a globally competitive and innovative nation. Before we get started with today's presentation, I would also like to take a moment to thank our incredible Startup Gov partners this year, including our presenting partner, Amazon, program partners, MasterCard and EDC, and our community of ecosystem partners, including Moneris, the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, May, Innovation Guelph, Mixing Babies with Business, and the CGLCC. And I know my colleague is going to drop some links to those great organizations in the chat for you to connect with as well. Today, we are pleased to have partnered with Procurement Assistance Canada, sometimes referred to as PAC, to host this webinar focused on how Procurement Assistance Canada supports businesses that are underrepresented in federal procurement. And a big thank you to Clinton and his team for engaging with us to make this webinar happen today. For the entrepreneurs tuning in today, we are proud to have curated a session focused on discussing the federal government's procurement landscape, the promotion of diversity and inclusion in federal supply chains, and how Procurement Assistance Canada can support your business's procurement journey. Our session today will begin with a presentation from our keynote speaker, Clinton Lawrence-Whyte, Director General, Procurement Assistance Canada, followed by a moderated question and answer segment from Stéphane Champagne, Supply Team Leader, Procurement Assistance Canada. Now, if you do have a question, we do encourage you to write it into the Q&A box down in the bottom function bar. You'll see a little Q&A, click on that, add all your questions in there, and we will do our best to answer them live shortly after the presentation. And for those that we can follow up with afterwards, we'll do the best we can as well. Additionally, we will be adding relevant links into the chat and following up with an email post-event with some additional resources and a copy of today's presentation as well. Now, without further ado, I am delighted to introduce our speaker today, Clinton Lawrence-Whyte, Director General, Procurement Assistance Canada. Clinton joined PAC as Director General in 2020. Prior to this, he was the Acting Director General of the Procurement Business Management Sector, Procurement Branch, Public Services, and Procurement Services Canada, responsible for leading the provision of strategic and operational expertise and support to procurement operations. Clinton previously held the position of Senior Director of Business Integration and Liaison Directorate, Procurement Branch, Public Services and Procurement Canada. Clinton has also served in executive roles in a number of federal departments and central agencies and holds a bachelor's degree of honors in political science from the University of Winnipeg and a master's of public administration from both the University of Manitoba and the University of Winnipeg. Clinton, we're so lucky to have you with us today. Welcome to our Startup Gov event, and I will turn the virtual screen over to you.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I would also like to note that I too am speaking from the unceded and traditional land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin, now known as Ottawa. We know that Algonquin peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be able to present to Startup Canada in this territory. Je voudrais aborder reconnaître notre immense privilège et j'aimerais dire que nous sommes sur la terre non cédée et traditionnelle des Algonquins Anishinaabe, maintenant connus sous le nom d'Ottawa. Les Algonquins vivent sur le territoire depuis des temps immémoriaux. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir l'opportunité de présenter à Startup Canada sur le territoire. As mentioned, my name is Clinton Lawrence-Whyte. I'm with Director General of Procurement Assistance Canada. I just want to talk a little about today about our organization and how we can work with you and how we may be able to help shape procurement going forward. So federal procurement is being modernized every day to better enable smaller and diverse businesses to compete and win federal government contracts, participate more fully in the Canadian economy, and contribute to community wealth generation. And on that note, I'd also note that I really appreciate the work of Startup Canada and also appreciate the work day in and day out of all of you who are startups, knowing that you take a lot of risk and you create wealth for Canada. So we thank you for that. Le Procurement fédéral est en cours de modernisation chaque jour pour mieux permettre aux entreprises petites et diversifiées de concourir et de remporter des contrats du gouvernement fédéral, de participer plus pleinement à l'économie canadienne et de contribuer à la création de richesses communautaires. Et j'aimerais dire que merci pour les entreprises qui prennent des risques chaque jour pour créer la richesse au Canada aussi. Just going to give you a quick summary of what we do, and for those, of course, who want to do business government of Canada. Can I get you, Stéphane, to change slide, please? Thank you. PAC was created to support smaller and diverse businesses in understanding and navigating the federal procurement process. Through this engagement, we help businesses understand how the government of Canada buys what it needs while exploring the opportunities available to them for selling their goods and services to the government of Canada. This also provides us with the opportunity to learn from industry, identify any potential barriers that may influence procurement strategies in an effort to ensure fairness in the process. And I would also note just an important point in terms of our mandate, we help all business day in and day out. We've recently expanded our mandate to do additional efforts to encourage businesses from underrepresented communities to participate more fully in federal procurement. But just want to make it clear that we are pleased to work with all businesses that want to have the opportunity to do business with the federal government. As you go to the next slide, please. Through our headquarters in Ottawa or our 6 regional offices, PAC provides services to the public through our awareness, education, and assistance model in terms of supporting businesses at all stages of their supply journey. And what that means more concretely is that we engage through seminars, workshops, other events, as well as various stakeholder collaborations and one-on-one sessions for more tailored assistance. And we also have a coaching service as well. So we also certainly do point businesses in the direction of other programs, business programs throughout the Government of Canada that may be of assistance. Mais j'aimerais dire pour notre organisation, nous avons des ateliers, des sessions pour aider nos partenaires de mieux comprendre le fonctionnement de l'approvisionnement au sein du gouvernement. Et comme nous avons indiqué sur la charte, il y a 6 bureaux régionaux partout au Canada et j'espère qu'il y a des bureaux près de vous qui pourraient vous aider dans vos besoins. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is really a sort of a sense of understanding how we in Procurement Assistance Canada kind of view our collaborations with business to help you hopefully achieve success in federal procurement. So we look at the bidding journey as part of our service model and our blueprint, and it's our foundation upon which we base our work when designing new content and services and delivering existing services. So really, we look at it from the perspective of we want to make sure that you're aware and that you can actually see the potential for the Government of Canada as an actual buyer of goods or services. We will help you understand the different tools that are available. There's a lot of diversity there. There's contracts, tenders, but then there's also other more faster ways of making your services and goods available. We can help you to sort of get those steps to become a potential supplier, finding opportunities, and help you to understand what you need to do to prepare bids, and certainly have conversations with businesses through perhaps the context of our coaching service for those who are from underrepresented communities to talk about the procurement process and where we can maybe help you around. But at the end of the day, we do have assistance that we're able to provide to you at every step of the procurement process. Next slide, please. So we can offer several resources to help you get started. So you can talk about sort of the basics of the federal procurement system, how it works, how to search. And then once you're familiar with those basics, we can then get into more in-depth conversations as well. We also have some really interesting sessions that I think you would quite enjoy. For example, myth busting, where we talk about potential myths that people may have about federal procurement. And we also do these virtually as well, which make them available. So it's really an opportunity for us to make you aware of what we need. And through these sessions, and we're going to have it posted in terms of our event calendar, so you can know when these different events are happening. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So this is an example of one of the services that we offer. So we look at our potential businesses that could benefit from working with us. There are those that are new to procurement, and we have mentioned we have atelier, we have seminars, we have workshops that can give you that sort of that information needed to sort of get in. For those who've actually gone through a procurement and maybe you've had limited success, and if you're from, for example, one of our underrepresented groups, we can have a coaching service where you can kind of work with a coach for a period of time to kind of go over your bidding process and to really understand what worked with your last bid and what didn't, and just sort of make sure that your confidence. At the end of the day, we want you to be feeling bid ready. That's how we kind of look at this. But this is an example of our services that is in addition to the regular workshops, educational sessions, one-on-one assistance if you walk into one of our offices. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an important element. It's quite an important change in terms of how the Government of Canada makes information about procurement available to Canadians. We used to have our information on what was called buy and sell. It was an older website where all of our procurement activity. We've now moved to the SAP Ariba platform, and Canada Buys, which is here, is the place where you would go to find out where procurement opportunities are, and also getting information that you need to know to better understand procurement. Achat Canada, c'est le site le plus important pour vous aider d'avoir peut-être le premier contact avec le gouvernement du Canada. C'est la place où nos contrats sont disponibles pour voir. And so that I encourage you to take note of and to look at it. I believe it's been put in the chat as well for you in terms of a link. Next slide, please. So in terms of resources to get you started in the context of the Canada Buys website, you'll also see that there are links that will bring you to our own website, which is Procurement Assistance Canada's website. And there it will enable you to have an understanding of what we offer in terms of the level of support that we provide, and a little bit more into detail about some of what I'm talking to you in terms of the kinds of ways that we can work with you directly and help you get started and involved in terms of registering, potentially being a bidder with the Government of Canada. So we have those sources that are there and available. So with Canada Buys, with our own website, Procurement Assistance Canada, a lot of online resources that are available to help you get started. Il y a plusieurs ressources sur ligne pour notre organisation de soutien à l'approvisionnement Canada. On a une site web avec l'information qui est dédiée pour vous aider de mieux comprendre le fonctionnement de l'approvisionnement. Et dans le site web, vous pouvez identifier les outils et les liens qui sont reliés aux vos besoins en termes de l'approvisionnement. Ask you to turn to the next slide, Stéphane. So in terms of supports to get you going, you can reach us many different ways. We have an email. I know it's a bit of a long email, but we'll have it available. I believe this presentation will be shared with everyone. That email will enable you to reach out and you can get questions answered that you have. We also have mentioned we have our website, Procurement Assistance Canada, and also Canada Buys, of course, is there. And we also have an info line, and you can see the number there. We have individuals that are there able to respond to calls, and they can also help direct you and perhaps in some cases answer your questions directly. But certainly the intent is to make sure that you're put in contact with someone within our organization that can work with you, answer the questions that you need with respect to procurement, and hopefully launch you on your way. I kept this at a high level, fully understand, but I presume that when we get into maybe some of the questions, we can go into a little bit more detail in terms of the kinds of supports that we have available to help businesses. So I wanted to go quickly to save time for the question and answer period, because I find that's the most interesting part. Alors, merci pour l'opportunité de parler avec vous. Mon intention était de réserver beaucoup de temps pour répondre aux questions, parce que pour moi, c'est la partie de nos sessions qui sont les plus importantes. Donc, je suis prêt pour répondre à vos questions et merci beaucoup.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Clinton, for that informative presentation. We're going to welcome Stéphane into the conversation here as well. Again, Stéphane is a supply team leader with Procurement Assistance Canada in the National Capital Region, who's going to help us lead through some of our questions and answers. But just a reminder to everyone attending today, if you've got any questions around the procurement process through the federal government or things of that nature, feel free to just add them into the Q&A box down in the bottom function bar of your screen of the Zoom window. But maybe to get us started, I do want to, maybe I can pose a question, Stéphane, just to kind of get the ball rolling, if you don't mind. But for both you and Clinton, what is the most important piece of advice for early stage entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking to do business with the federal government?
Yeah, no, maybe I'll start, and Stéphane come in, because I know you do work with him. I think the first thing I would say is that probably what I mentioned during the presentation, where I said that one of our presentations that we offer is myth busting. So I would I would say don't automatically assume that because you're a startup, you may not have services or goods that would be of interest to the government of Canada. As mentioned, we spend upwards of 24 billion a year in terms of buying goods or services, and the diversity is incredible. So you'd be surprised. So I would make sure, first of all, don't automatically take yourself out of the running. Um, Take a look at what the federal government is interested in, what we do, and look to see if there's a match. And from there, we of course can help you get started. But my sense would be don't take yourself out of the game right away. Think about the opportunities that may in fact be there. Stefan, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Clinton. I work with entrepreneurs every day in my role as a supply team leader with Procurement Assistance Canada in the National Capital Region. I work with solopreneurs, micro companies, yes, mid to large. One of the things that Clinton touched on is myths. There's a lot of myths surrounding procurement. In many cases, when I'm out engaging with industry and I talk about procurement, hey, you thought about selling to the government? Basically get the response, what are you, crazy? We're not going to compete with these big companies. No, you probably won't on multi-million, multi-billion dollar projects. But those are very few and far between. They represent a very small percentage of what the government buys on a day-to-day basis. They make the news because they're big ticket items. The everyday purchases are accessible to smaller companies, be it a few $1,000s, which is a straight up credit card purchase, to tens, hundreds of thousands, into the millions. There are opportunities for businesses of every size. Yes, it's a little harder for startups to break into the market, but that's true in the private sector as well. But you're entrepreneurs. You started a business for a reason, to succeed. And we're here to help you if that's possible. So one of the things that I would suggest is don't be afraid to reach out to us, right? Yes, you can do a lot of research on your own, but you're busy running your business. We're here to help you with this particular topic.
That's great. And we do have a question come in through the Q&A, but before I go there, I do want to sort of double tap into, maybe you can paint a picture for us of what kind of products and services the government looks to procure. It might, I know, Stéphane, you spoke to some of the bigger ticket sort of pieces of the puzzle, but what are some of those everyday sort of products or services that the government uses that might procure on a smaller scale and or longer term sort of pieces, but maybe you can kind of paint what that looks like for us.
Absolutely. First off, the government of Canada is made up of over 100 departments and agencies. So people tend to think of it as a monolith, one massive organization, when we really are the sum of our parts. So each department, agency have common needs, right? Office supplies, computers, desks, chairs, the basic stuff. But then each department has its own unique needs. You take, say, the RCMP, they need vehicles, they have animals, horses, dogs, they need veterinary services, they have musical instruments. Yes, of course, handcuffs and cruisers and those types of things, but they also have detachments all across the country, even in remote regions. They need janitorial services, landscaping. That list goes on and on and on, and that's just one department. Take the national defense. That's everything from paper clips to Navy ships, and I really mean everything in between. So all manners of training, food, clothing, not just uniforms, the fitness equipment. That list again is exhaustive. And for many who live on the base full time, of course, they need recreational activities. I saw a tender notice when I started here several years ago. They were looking for a timekeeper and 2 referees for their amateur hockey league. There's tons and tons of opportunity. It's just a matter of being able to access it, right? And again, that's why we're here, to make that easier. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, totally. And I think it helps to just paint that picture of quantifying the what a little bit better for entrepreneurs. just larger scale pieces, it's sort of day-to-day items that you kind of mentioned. Clinton, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I would just add a little bit in top of the good points that Stéphane made. If you go to when you go to the Canada Buys website, you may notice something which is a bit different as well. It's related to our recent trade agreement under the Canada European Trade Agreement. We're now required as a signatory to that agreement to have in one stop all of the federal, provincial, territorial procurement opportunities, as well as procurement opportunities related to some of the big sort of non-governmental related organizations like hospitals, cities as well. On our Canada Buys website, you'll be able to have a link which would take you to those different websites that will tell you about their opportunities as well. So as mentioned, Stéphane talked about sort of there's 100+ organizations, federal government. You also have the ability to have access to the broader public service as well. And then probably we'll get into it later. There are different ways of contracting with the federal government. We'll get into it, whether it's a contract, a tender opportunity, what we talked about, as Stéphane mentioned, there's credit card. There's also ways that we can kind of do sort of pre-qualified processes, which is something that may be of interest to certain types of startups, where you can kind of go through the process of getting qualified once, and then you're able to be potentially called up for in a much more speedier process if your goods or services align with what the organization needs. So all of that, as Stéphane mentioned, we can talk you through, and as potentially find that connective link between your business opportunity and what we in the government need.
That's fantastic. And we'll circle back to that because I do have some follow-up questions on supply lists and things of that nature. So I'm glad you brought that up now. But I do want to get to some of these questions that we have in the Q&A box from Michelle. Are regulated products, specifically medical devices, included as items that the government would procure, or would that be more so on the individual sort of hospital basis? Or Clinton, even further to what you were just saying about that sort of international scope, be relevant across those lines as well?
Yeah, maybe I'll just start, and certainly, Stéphane, you can come in. With the federal government, we do buy a broad range of goods and services. I have to think back to examples of when we would have bought regulated sort of medically related products in high quantities. I just have to think back to a few years ago in the context of the COVID pandemic, in terms of what we bought, which was substantial. So it's certainly not unheard of for the federal government to buy those sorts of goods. Certainly the requirements to meet certain standards are present, and our procurement officers are well trained to manage those sorts of procurements, where, depending on the nature of it, they would be able to determine the extent to which goods and services under consideration meet those requirements. I should also make a point as well. So we're both Stéphane and I, we're within Public Services Procurement Canada. That's the department that we're located within. That department is called Common Service Provider. So we do procurement services. We provide them on behalf of those other departments. So for the larger tickets that departments are not able to do on their own for services, goods, they will come to us. So in that context of the question, Health Canada could have a requirement for certain types of goods or services that potentially could be of a regulated nature. They would come to us, and we would manage that process on their behalf, assuming it was within our thresholds. Stéphane, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add on that.
Just very briefly. So yes, that is one of the commodities that the government does buy. There's only a handful of departments that would require medical devices. Again, Health Canada regulates the sale of medical devices in Canada. We found that out during the pandemic when we were actively looking for them. I now know more about a MDEL, medical device establishment license, that I ever thought I'd know. So yes, it is regulated. And if you're an authorized vendor of these products, then there are opportunities for you. We typically, when I say we, Team Government Canada, Public Services Procurement Canada, we typically don't purchase on behalf of the provinces and territories. So when you're talking about selling directly to institutions like hospitals, they have their own procurement process. We would only do so in special emergency scenarios like COVID. But the Department of National Defense, for example, does have a requirement for medical equipment, devices, laboratory equipment, National Research Council. Yes, there are opportunities.
That's great. Thank you both so much for that one. Our next question up here is, my company has supplied to the government in the past, but not for a while. How do we remake contacts with previous sales to ensure that the equipment that was purchased is being properly used and maintained? Any advice on that sort of like post-sale sort of follow-up process that either of you might have?
So that's a good question. So typically when there is a procurement process, we start out, of course, with the actual sort of procurement stage, and there is a contracting officer that would manage that and sort of go through until we eventually are able to identify a winning bidder who then becomes a contractor. Then we go into contract management. Depending on the nature of the contract, there would be requirement for ongoing contact between the contracting officer and, if it's another department that we procured on behalf of, the organization, the department, all within the context of the contract. So I guess first of all, I would say that if the contract required some sort of ongoing contact, then I would expect that would take place in the context of the contract. But once the contract itself is finished, then there may not be a formal requirement to engage. However, there is no issue with a business that would want to reach out a past contract holder to have conversations about it, but that would be more understood to be conversations that are outside of the sort of the contract management stage. But certainly it's something that could happen. I don't know, Stéphane, anything else on that side?
I believe you've nailed it. So if we're straight up buying goods, then the contract basically ends when we've received, inspected, accepted. You've issued an invoice, payment issued. For common off-the-shelf goods, typically we won't include a service package if we can obtain those services from other vendors, depending on the nature of the goods. If they're very specific and only that vendor could support their maintenance, operation, training, etc., we would build that into the contract. Now, connecting with previous clients is just a matter of reaching out to those departments. We have an online tool, it's basically a website, I'm not going to call it a tool, the Government Electronic Directory Service, which allows you to connect with material managers, procurement specialists of various departments.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually did not know about that resource myself, but thank you for helping to shed some light on that specific question. I've got a question that I'm hoping maybe I can circle back on, Clinton, is, maybe you can help paint the picture of the process, along with any tips you might have for those trying to look on getting onto any of these sort of supply arrangement lists or any of those preferred vendor lists that you manage, but maybe you can kind of explain what that process is like and any sort of tips that you have for how to kind of make sure that you're sort of looking out to make the effort, because we all know that putting together proposals, putting together applications is time consuming, and as small business owners, I think a big piece of it is how can you sort of minimize some of that time so that you can find out whether or not you're going to be qualified or not in general. But maybe I'll throw that over to you to comment on.
Yeah, thanks. As much as I would love to sort of dive into this one is fully within the wheelhouse of my colleague Stéphane, because he has this very conversation with businesses day in and day out. So Stéphane, I'll let you kind of jump into that one.
Thank you. Yes, that is an excellent question. It's a very key concept when it comes to understanding how the government goes about purchasing specified goods and services. For recurring purchases, be it just for one department or recurring purchases for multiple departments, rather than go through, a lengthy competitive process each time. We'll establish a source list. This is laid out in the government contract regulations, whereby we will pre-qualify vendors who sell those goods and services that we require on a regular basis. We do so by publishing a notice on Canada Buys. It's either a request for standing offer or request for supply arrangement, where the intent is not to award a contract, but to pre-approve, pre-qualify vendors who sell those products and services. And once pre-qualified, if and when required, and Clinton touched on this, we'll issue a call-up. That's the agreement. You jump through our hoops in the beginning, become pre-qualified. The agreement there is when we require those goods and services, we're going to buy them from you. You've taken the time to become one of our pre-approved. We don't use language like preferred. I get that question a lot. Do you have any preferred vendors? We don't use that language. Pre-qualified, pre-approved. And it's one of the favored methods of supply for the government of Canada. If a client sends a requisition, which is a requirement, someone needs something, they send it to procurement. One of the very first things they'll do is they'll check to see if we have a list. Do we have a list of pre-approved vendors who sell those goods and services? If we do, that's how we're going to go about the purchase. The turnaround time is so much faster. Saves the government time and money. It also saves vendors time and money. As Clinton touched on earlier, in the case of a standing offer, you become pre-approved. That can lead to multiple contracts over the life of that standing offer with no further negotiation, no further work on your part. We just issue a call-up, which is basically a purchase order. And if you accept, now we have a contract.
That's great. That really helps to kind of clarify that piece. Sorry, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just wanted to mention various levels of government, because Clinton mentioned, broader public sector. So we work with provinces and territories, municipalities. We've participated in many events together, talked about the similarities, differences between our procurement processes. They're almost identical. And they have similar lists. They just have different names, like vendor of record, something of that nature. Same idea. Something I believe Clinton touched on in his presentation, which is very important. We recognize that it's difficult for suppliers, to sell to different levels of government. That we use different websites. We have different lists with different names. That's why at Procurement Assistance Canada, we have the Canadian Collaborative Procurement Initiative, where we're working with the provinces and territories saying, look, you maintain similar list hours, you buy almost the same things we do. Why don't we collaborate? We'll save money and time, and it'll make it so much easier for the supplier community. We've been working on that initiative for many, many years, and we've onboarded almost all of the provinces and territories. I think there's just one little sticking point, but it's going very, very well, saving everyone time, effort, and money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One thing I would just add, and I fully agree with it. One thing I would just add, probably getting to the element of for a lot of the startups on the call, time is money. When you're talking to our folks at Procurement Assistance Canada, we can help you to kind of get a sense of what are the kinds of procurement opportunities out there. How does it relate to what you have in terms of goods or services, where we don't want you to waste your time. So let's help you identify those specific opportunities that make sense, and then those are the ones that you go for it. So that's really, at the end of the day, we really respect the fact that you have day activities that you're doing, very important, and we just want to find a way to integrate consideration of the federal government as a potential buyer into your very busy lives.
That's really great. And it's really great to see that sort of all of Canada sort of collaboration too, especially looking at some of those newer advancements with the provinces and territories to help streamline some of that process, because oftentimes your application process will be super, super long for federal, but then also super long for each of the provinces and territories. And you do that multiple times, and it's some of it you can repurpose easily, and some of it you're literally having to take the time to sort of create from scratch. And so looking for any of those efficiencies is great. Maybe one piece that you can sort of touch on is how long do those lists sort of stay in like active? Is there like a 1 year sort of cycle on something like that, where then, okay, if someone may have missed, an opportunity, to get on a certain list, is there an opportunity maybe in 12 to 18 months later to sort of try again, if you will? Maybe they weren't qualified previously, but then have since sort of grown or scaled. Maybe you can explain how some of that timeline works and how to best sort of navigate trying to like plan for some of those opportunities.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And I'll definitely get Stéphane to dive in. Probably the best way to understand that is really to look at it by a commodity by commodity basis. There are some commodities, and when I'm saying commodities, that would be like the goods or service that we're talking about. Some of them move very quickly. The volumes that are moved move quickly. In some cases, they could be influenced by technology, where the technology changes, where you wouldn't want to be locked into a certain kinds of an arrangement, knowing that the technology changes every 6 or 12 months, and you're kind of, so the government of Canada, of course, similar to other organizations, wants to make sure that it's operating at the cutting edge, or to the extent that it can, to ensure that it's as efficient as possible. So there are a lot of drivers that will determine whether or not a given commodity gets refreshed fairly quickly, or if it is more of a steadier duration. And if it's longer, it's also, of course, dependent on the market as well. If there are a number of players in there, then there may be opportunities, or giving consideration to how we can make sure that these opportunities sort of capture the broadest number, but a lot of different drivers. So that's where we would say talking to our folks can help you get a sense of, for your given area of interest, your commodity, what is the frequency and when are those refreshes happening, and we'll make sure that you can sort of be attuned and be ready. And we'll probably note as well, but we do have our contract history on the Canada Buys website, so you can see past procurements and supply arrangements, standing offers. And in some cases, those documents actually indicate when upcoming refreshes are. But I'm going to stop there, because again, this is another area that I know, Stéphane, you consult with regularly. So over to you.
Oh, thank you. In terms of standing offers and supply arrangements, the key differences between the two is, in the case of the standing offer, we pre-negotiate everything, including pricing. That's why they're better suited for goods. We used to use them for everything, services, translation, you name it. But for services, we've transitioned towards supply arrangements, which I'll talk about in a moment. Because we pre-negotiate pricing with the standing offer, clearly we can't expect our vendors to keep those prices forever. It'd be great if they could, especially with the inflation the way it's going. So those are recompeted there's no firm schedule. It depends on what we're buying, but they're recompeted on either an annual, biannual. It's either once every 1, 2, or 3 years. They are recompeted. The incumbents have to submit a new offer, just like everyone else. They're not given priority or any advantage, and that allows the new entrants to become pre-qualified. For supply arrangements for services, so for example, our consulting services, which is a big spend, be it HR, IT consulting, project management, et cetera, there's no actual end date because we don't pre-negotiate pricing, and these types of services don't really go out of style. A vendor can pre-qualify, and that supply arrangement will be in place until, I think the language is, Canada no longer deems it necessary. But for those, we allow an ongoing opportunity to pre-qualify. So no one is left on the outside looking in. So if someone says, hey, wait a minute, I'm an HR consultant, there is an ongoing opportunity to pre-qualify. For those that don't have the ongoing opportunity, then they have to be refreshed periodically. That's always top of mind. We don't want to get locked in with the same vendors for an extended period. We want new entrants to have the opportunity to participate. Procurement has to be accessible. New entrants have to have a way in.
That's really great. And Clinton, I love that you sort of also alluded, because a tip that I would have for our entrepreneurs listening today is take a look at who has won some of those past contracts before you, or before you apply. You can get a sense for who the comparators are in a particular sort of sector or industry, or provider of services or products, and kind of scope out the competition a little bit. And I think you can use some of that insight to your advantage, either whether you decide to pursue and continue to apply, and or just help in building out your overall business plan to be more competitive if the government is a target sort of customer down the line in your plan. Another question I have, and I love, Stéphane, that you touched on the inclusive factor of it, but what can we expect in the future regarding additional steps that Procurement Assistance Canada will take to support diverse businesses? Maybe we can tap into that a little bit, just to see, you know, what is the government doing? How are things being prioritized internally as part of those processes?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. As mentioned, with the mandate of Procurement Assistance Canada, we've really prioritized inclusivity and notions of supplier diversity. So it is something that we are, through our use of Canada Buys, we're starting to be able to get that understanding of our database of businesses that would want to potentially work with the government of Canada. We have a questionnaire on the Canada Buys website that enables business leaders to self-identify if they are from an underrepresented group, or including Indigenous as well. So we know that getting an understanding of the business universe, critically important for us. With us in Procurement Assistance Canada, we've definitely increased our outreach efforts to these to businesses from these underrepresented communities, so that they're aware of the opportunities and that there are free resources. Meaning we're free resources that are available to help them. We are certainly looking at the potential to have procurement opportunities that are going to be a more targeted towards underrepresented groups. Is something that we're going to continue to look at. It's been certainly noted as a priority by the government of Canada in their past budgets as well. So it's something that we are certainly looking at. So I would just say stay tuned on that front. But really operationalizing supplier diversity is something it's going to be increasingly important as we go forward.
That's great. And Stéphane, maybe because you deal with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, can you paint the picture of what any consultations look like as you're speaking with entrepreneurs on a regular basis? Are you noticing that, you know, people are asking more of these questions and looking for those opportunities for themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the biggest things is reaching people where they are, right? And to do that, we work with people like you, Startup Canada. We have national partners. You mentioned CGLCC as one of the sponsors. I do a presentation, at least one every year. They keep inviting me back, so I must be doing okay. But we work with a number of national partners like that. We work with local partners, any type of innovator or incubator will come to you, right where you are, and we'll talk about what we do. And yes, that leads, so we'll do a presentation like today, That will lead to one-on-one consultations where someone will reach out to me with questions via email. Eventually, we'll book a meeting either in person, over Teams or Zoom, something like that. I'll assess their needs, who they are, what they do, what they can offer to the government of Canada, and together we work on the best way forward. In some cases, I've been working with people for several years now. It's an ongoing process, and it's very rewarding, especially when I see that they're successful, right? And I think back to when we first met and they thought, this is not going to work. This is too complicated and this is impossible. To 2 years later, and hey, you're doing okay. I assess the needs of who I'm speaking to on a person by person basis. Nothing is cookie cutter when it comes to procurement. I hope that sort of answers the question.
No, definitely. And I love that you mentioned the CGLCC. They've got a great supplier diversity program as well, that they are doing a great job advocating for, and looking at those joint efforts is really, really, I think, key in the ecosystem of support for entrepreneurs across Canada. I've got one more question coming in through the Q&A here. We've got from Chris, are there pathways to market our goods and services to the government proactively rather than responding to tenders? And I'm going to add on to his question, or onto their question, in regards to if you do make it onto any of the sort of pre-vetted lists or supply arrangements, how do you even then sort of look at proactively sort of marketing yourselves directly to some of the constituents inside the government?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll probably look at this one from a number of different angles. So, for example, like we've been talking about tenders and we've been talking about supply arrangements, standing offers. There's another class of or another couple of classes of procurements we didn't talk about. First ones are low dollar value, and I think Stéphane alluded to them, like where departments can, in some cases, use their credit cards and do purchases. So those can potentially go quite quickly, where that's really a relationship between an individual business and a department or federal organization. So certainly we encourage, and again, Stéphane's team can provide tips and tricks for businesses on how to outreach directly with those businesses to maybe identify some of those opportunities. But those are smaller value, but certainly potential to go quicker. Last one we didn't talk about was subcontracting. If we do award a very large contract or even a medium-sized contract, there are opportunities where the prime contractor may need other subs to help them deliver. And so again, we talk about how businesses can connect with those leading primes who in some cases do need support. So those are two other areas. In terms of your specific question, we do a few things that we can help. We've started for businesses from underrepresented groups. We've tried the concept of a buyer showcase, where we invite different federal buyers from different departments to come to one spot and set up booths, and then we invite businesses. Businesses certainly open. We do target it to some of these underrepresented groups, but certainly certainly businesses can come and again opportunity these business leaders to talk to the buyers about what is it that you're looking for, what do you need, and I think we've been trying it for the last year or so, and I think they've been quite successful. Really creates an opportunity for dialogue between buyers and businesses to sort of ensure that both sides have an understanding of what's out there. So that's something we do. Another element as well is that we do encourage businesses to, as mentioned, reach out to other federal organizations, not necessarily connected to a specific procurement, just to talk about their wares, and we're certainly there to be helpful to get those sort of doors open. I think dialogue and conversation between businesses and government always important, and I think it'll make everyone much more efficient when it actually comes time for government to identify a need and business to fulfill a need. Stéphane, anything else to add?
I will just add on to that. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, we were at our Public Sector Buyers Expo at the Wabano Center, which was fantastic. And if we could do more of that, enabling that conversation, that networking to start. I think it's fantastic. It's a great path that we're set on. One of the things that I will say, procurement by nature is not very innovative, right? Someone is sitting at their desk and they define a requirement. That's your day-to-day purchases. Not much innovation goes into that. The government is well aware of that, and that's why many years ago they launched innovation programs. We used to run one, which I thought was the best when we ran it, the Building Canada Innovation Program. It's now it's been streamlined and amalgamated into Innovative Solutions Canada, which is mostly challenge-based, but it's still a standalone component where you have something new that we haven't thought about. We've set aside some money so you can showcase it. If we like it, we'll buy it, we'll test it out. And you keep your intellectual property. You get your first sale, which goes a long way when you're pitching your new product to other organizations, right? You're sitting at your pitch and they say, hey, do you have any clients? Well, have you heard of the Department of National Defense? Because they bought some. And here's what they said about it. So we are aware that innovation is sort of it's not necessarily a blind spot. It's just procurement wasn't designed really to be innovative. And that's why we're modernizing procurement to be more innovative, to be less stringent on, does it check off all of these boxes? We're coming up with innovative procurement policies and ways of doing things. But again, we have the innovation programs and definitely the low dollar value, which represents very little risk to the government of Canada. If you have something that's worth a few $1,000s that could save us a ton of time and money and effort, we'll seriously consider it.
Fantastic. Well, we are coming up on time. This was a great conversation, and thank you both so much for being with us today. One final question before I get into my closing remarks is, how can folks learn more or find out more about the buyer showcases? I'm assuming those probably happen across the country. Are they predominantly in certain areas? Where could our entrepreneurs go to learn out more about those opportunities?
Yeah, no, thank you. We do have an event calendar on the Procurement Assistance Canada website where we do have our upcoming events. And you're correct, we do have these across the country. So yeah, I would just say stay tuned for the local buyers showcase, and hopefully the startups will have an opportunity to visit and see how the federal government can potentially be their next buyer of goods or services.
That's wonderful. Well, again, thank you both so much for being with us today and sharing more about what Procurement Assistance Canada can do and how entrepreneurs can kind of get involved and get into the system to actually sell their products and services across Canada. We are going to wrap things up as we come up to time here, but thank you for all of our attendees for joining here today. We do have a very quick feedback poll that my colleague Miriam is going to launch right now. We truly value any feedback that you have. It'll take a couple of minutes, so really appreciate it if you can answer a couple of questions just before signing off today. Once again, thank you, Clinton and Stéphane, for donating your time and expertise, and a very big thank you to the extended team at Procurement Assistance Canada for making today possible. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our Startup Gov presenting partner, Amazon, our program partners, MasterCard and EDC, and our community of ecosystem support partners, including Moneris, the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, May, Innovation Guelph, Mixing Babies with Business, and the CTLCC, we talked about a little bit earlier today. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining.